Before the days of huntsmen and huntresses, there were very few who were capable of defending against the Grimm, trained in the ways of aura and in semblance. So whenever the Grimm would attack, the people would be left with no choice but to flee, leaving more and more of the land to the monsters. But eventually, wherever they went, the monsters would soon follow. There is one tale, however, where this is not the case. A tale of a hunter and his 4 children, simply named The Hunter's Children. This is a tale of teamwork overcoming adversity, that we are stronger together than alone. In the village in Mistral there was once a hunter and his 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters. Where the rest of the village would go out and hunt animals and forage for food, this hunter instead fought against the Grimm. This family never starved in the village. Even though they never foraged for food, the other villagers would provide for them, thankful for the protection that the hunter provided. And the children would often ask the hunter, "Why is it that you fight the Grimm?" And the hunter would have various different answers to this. Sometimes he would answer, "My aura is stronger than others, therefore it's my duty to protect." This would prompt a discussion on aura and how aura alone is not enough, without the ability to use it to shield oneself from harm or to support a semblance. Other times, he would say that his semblance lets him know when Grimm are nearby, prompting a discussion with the rest of his children as to what semblance of theirs is the most useful. As the older daughter had a semblance that could lead her to where she is needed most, the older brother had a semblance that could link everyone's auras together as long as they were in physical contact. The younger daughter had a semblance that could calm any human or animal, and the younger brother had a semblance that could make him invisible to Grimm. And other times the hunter would respond that he hates the Grimm for taking their mother from them, and hates himself for not being there when she died. This would prompt a discussion between the family, reminiscing about the happy memories they had of their mother. But one day, as the hunter went out to fight the Grimm, he didn't return, and the village informed the children that their father was likely dead. Each of the children grieved that night, but when it came to morning, they discussed what would be the best course of action for them to do. The older sister said that the village needed them most. They should take up the mantle and defend, just as their father had done. The older brother responded that there are other people in the world who need our help. We need to go to other villages and protect them as well. The younger sister said that they needed to learn more about the Grimm, and the younger brother said that we need to seek our own adventure. By protecting others, we are simply putting ourselves at risk. So, the older sister bid farewell to each of her siblings, as they each wanted to travel their own path. The older sister stayed and protected the village, but with them grieving the death of the hunter, Grimm attacks came more and more frequently. And although the older sister did protect and saved many lives, the Grimm attacks were simply increasing, and the number of villagers that remained dwindled. Eventually, the remaining villagers wanted to set out and find a place that would be safer for them to live. The older brother set out to find another village in need of his assistance. He found 3 villages, each of them abandoned and had already been overrun by Grimm. But when he came upon a village that was finally under siege by the Grimm, he convinced the villagers to tie a rope to themselves and to him to support him with their aura. And with their help, he was able to defeat the Grimm, and the village welcomed him as their savior and pleaded with him to stay. The younger sister found a place in the forest where she could build a little loft in the trees. She cloaked herself and calmed herself down so the Grimm wouldn't be drawn to her, and she studied them from afar. And the younger brother went out into the forest to seek his own adventure, but each of them met their own adversity along the way. One day, the younger sister, as she was up in her perch, realized that she wasn't really learning much about the Grimm's strength and weaknesses, just watching them roam about the forest. But one day she saw a large group of them pass by, seemingly having a target or destination in mind, and she knew someone must be in danger. So she got down from her loft and followed them. The younger brother, for all of his boasting about adventure and wanting to set out on his own, admittedly had not been in the forest alone before, and had gotten lost almost immediately upon setting out. Though his semblance could hide him from the Grimm by closing his eyes, the Grimm could still sense his presence, and he wandered for days trying to avoid them, but eventually the Grimm enclosed around him in a clearing. And as the panic started to set in and the Grimm closed in around him, he felt a calmness wash over him. And then his sister was there, and they were happy to be reunited with one another. The Grimm soon lost interest and went off to seek their next target. Both the brother and sister realized that someone else would be in danger, and that they had to help them. The older sister, guided by her semblance, was leading the remaining villagers to a place where she thought they would be safe. Ever vigilant, she was the first to notice the Grimm burst forth from the forest, and she stood strong to defend her people. But her heart began to sink as she realized the Grimm were outnumbering her. Maybe a couple of the villagers would survive, but it was very unlikely given the number. Until the Grimm started falling one by one from behind, and the sister was happy to see her two other siblings join the fray. Together the three of them stood strong and started to fight against the Grimm. But they soon started to lose as well. Their aura became weak, and they started to lose hope. Until they felt strength rejuvenate in them. They felt a hand on their shoulder as their older brother appeared, a rope tied around his waist, and about a dozen other people tied along with him. They joined hands, and the aura rejuvenated them all. As they tied a rope around each of their waists and had the support of everyone behind them, they were able to defeat the small army of Grimm. The family embraced one another and admitted their mistakes, the older sister apologizing for being so stubborn, that there were too many Grimm for her to fight alone, and thankful that her semblance led her back to her family, back to her true home. The older brother apologizing for leaving them behind, realizing that they are stronger together, and that together they can overcome anything. The younger sister realizing that the best way to learn about the Grimm is to fight against them, and the younger brother apologizing most of all for his foolhardiness, apologizing for being so selfish and for losing sight of what is most important. The family embraced one another, forgiving each other for their mistakes and agreeing that they are stronger together as a team, that their father only perished because he decided to fight alone. For the rest of their days, these four protected the village that they built together and welcomed anyone who was refugees from the Grimm. Occasionally, over the years, they would set out on their own to offer help where they could, and inspired others with their bravery, their wisdom, their heart, and their humility. This tale is an excellent representation of the idea that people are much stronger together than they are alone. Each of the siblings' semblances had their own utility, but together their abilities were amplified greatly, each being able to support one another and fight back against the Grimm, supporting this village and helping it prosper. One can't help but wonder to think that if the King of Vale had this tale in mind, it served as inspiration for the Huntsman Academies and the formation of four-person teams. This also would be a good representation, the lessons learned by each of the children for the four kingdoms of Remnant, Vale, Vacuo, Mistral, and Atlas, that if each of them were to just simply work together, they would be much stronger united than each of them alone. There are many different lessons that can be learned from this tale. The importance of friends and family, teamwork being stronger than fighting alone. Also, a very simple one that could also fit into the Vacuan saying that just don't go into the forest alone. Pretty simple one that could also be represented and learned by a few of the other tales in this book, but let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. What lessons were you able to learn from the Hunter's Children? There are many more fairy tales to cover, and I'm really looking forward to doing so, and make sure to subscribe to keep up with each of them coming out on this channel. Join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. Tweet me at PhoenixKnight7, join our Discord server linked in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.